Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of unexpected favorites, tracks that don't typically fit what you usually enjoy, but unexpectedly was actually a jam that you enjoyed listening to. Today we're going to start off with a band, a group, an artist, I don't know, called Let's Eat Grandma. Okay. The track's called Levitation. I'm in store for something heavy. What a band name. Let's check out what Let's Eat Grandma is bringing to the table today. Not what I was expecting at all. Interesting. Chorus started out this time around not as impactful as it did last time. Wait, what? I legit thought that was a bridge. I thought we were gonna have more music, and then it just stopped. So, that's the first time the music did something that wasn't foundational or atmospheric. It actually had a melody line that was designed to take the song somewhere rather than to create a feeling. And because of that, the song kind of feels like it's just A, B, and then the B is so short lived. There is a small shift, though, in some of our sections that I'm going to lean into traditional vibes and call a verse chorus, even though they're not too dissimilar from each other. And it feels like the song is probably on a verse chorus outro idea, which is an interesting variation on it. Like I said, we technically get a bridge that just doesn't take us to our ending. I mean, it is, but our bridge is the ending. It's a unique outro. ABABC is, I mean, it's a small variation on what we typically experience with that common song structure, but it's also bizarre because it feels so abrupt. And because we always have a verse, that extra B section that comes after our C, even in rock and metal, I mean, it's just such a prolific, such a common song structure. It feels abrupt because we don't get it. We don't get anything. It just ends. Wow. Uh, yeah, it's so disruptive. I was beginning to form thoughts about the song and how I would structure the analysis and what topics I want to put in which order, and it just completely blew up my thought process there. I thought I had more time to construct this. So what's going on musically here? Our A and our B, our verse and a chorus, are very similar. The big difference, as far as I can tell, is mostly what's sitting on the outside and what our higher pitched synth is doing as a quasi melodic idea. We have a drum and bass that sits on the bottom of the song that creates the foundation. Our bass typically sits on one note and has a rhythmic pattern to it. It's a little syncopated. It isn't just something like straight quarter notes or straight eighth notes. It's a bit bouncy. It has some fun vibes to it. Uh, it's a 4-bar phrase. It's comprised of 3 chords. We have our first note, our second note, which rises a bit, and our third and fourth note are the same, and they are below our first pitch. They are just these really low notes. I don't even know if I could hit them with my voice. They're just booming tones. And then we rise back up to our home. This pattern is showcased in the chorus as well, but it's a different pattern, rhythmic pattern, and I think it's a slightly different note pattern as well. We might actually be shifting modes, going from minor to major possibly. Our drums are pretty typical, just sitting in the pocket here, laying down a heartbeat for the rest of the band, just really emphasizing the tempo and time signature of the piece, really being that metronome, that heartbeat for the rest of the instruments to play around. Which leads us to our lead synth. It's really interesting how the instrumentation I can relate very closely to a rock setup where we have our bass and drums, we have a lead guitar, and then a vocal. It's a lead synth in this case. There really isn't anything else outside of that, which I'm trying to approach as unbiased as I can. When it comes to electronic music like this, I really love the width and instrumental layering that we can get out of basically having an infinite amount of stuff. We don't need to worry about who's going to play it or how to even make the sound because we don't need to worry about performing it with real instruments. You just keep making new things and filling in the space, and this ends up being a bit sparser than I typically enjoy when it comes to electronic music. And I'm just trying to keep that in perspective. Um, so I find it interesting that it's electronic music, but it can so easily be thought about in terms of a rock band because there's a limitation of voicings in here. Anyways, we have this lead synth sound, and it kind of has these light ornamental ideas in the verse that get expanded into these long chordal whole notes, almost taking up a full bar each, I think, in our chorus. And that's really the big difference between our verse and our chorus is that the soundscape is filled on our chorus. The synth takes up a very wide sound. It's a very full sound. We move from the scattered handful of single notes in our verse that kind of fill in pockets of space but are rather sparsely placed, ending up with a much a hollower sound in our verse. There's more space to be filled that isn't. It makes it sound like the music is a small aspect of this larger space. When we get into the chorus, this larger space is filled. The lead synth is allowed to fill up more of it. And it sort of wraps itself around the music rather than is placed throughout it, like ornamentation. Like I said, I mean, there's also the tonal shift. Like I said, I think we go from a minor mode to a major mode, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But there is a little bit of an emotional shift. But those are really the only two differentiations. The bass and the drums and the vocals, which I'll talk about in a second, all pretty much do the same thing with the same roles and the same tones and pitches and ranges in both of these sections. In fact, it almost feels like a song that is primarily based on a single foundational idea, something like a post-rock slow burn where we start out hearing one guitar and one drum and one bass, and while more and more layers get put on top, those three exist from start to finish, and as we start to remove some of the layers, we return back down to this foundational idea. We realize that as far away from this that the song might have reached through its layers, we never really changed ideas, and that's what it feels like here. There is a shift into the chorus, but really the underlying parts, our drum and our bass, don't change much. They continue to do very, very similar things. And it ends up just kind of blurring together for me in a lot of ways. Um, the vocals are interesting, and I'm going to make a different timestamp here rather than pocket it in with everything else, because there's something really interesting going on with the vocals. I don't think I've ever asked this for this reason before, but are there two vocalists in this band? And if there are, how close are their voices? See, here's the thing. There are some vocal harmonies that go on in the chorus, and it almost sounds like double tracking, but it's just off. Just off enough for me to say maybe there's two vocalists here. But then I listen and they're so close. I'm like, maybe it's not. Maybe they just tweaked it a little bit in post. And then I'm like, no, there's like differences in timbre, but it's so minute. It is honestly kind of a bizarre feeling. It's like trying to focus your eyes on something, and no matter how hard you're actively trying to bring this object into focus, you just can't. It remains an anomaly. That's how I feel about it. There are simultaneously at all times one and two vocalists in the chorus. It is mind-boggling. So I extend this question to anybody who's familiar with the band. Uh, do they tweak a backing track from a single vocalist, or are there two vocalists in this band? The music video gave me no answers. There is a duality in the music video, but I don't necessarily think I can read into that as far as the musical component. But it's just the most mind-boggling thing. Speaking of mind-boggling, the band's called Let's Eat Grandma, and I was really expecting something not bright, uplifting pop. what a what a mishmash of expectations and what I got out of this. Um, that is just not a pop group artist name. I was really expecting something deathcore, maybe. Maybe I'm thinking deathcore is too edgy though. I don't know. Just something more aggressive. And I ended up getting some pop. And this leads us into our second chorus, which I brought up a little bit in the video, but our second chorus starts off without that extra width of the wider synth, of having the layers, of having the chords and pushing it out to be a wider sound rather than these little tiny notes here and there. Our second chorus comes in and just doesn't let the synth do that, even though this is the synth's role for the chorus, as we explored in our first chorus. It was a very interesting variation of allowing the chorus to not have that sonic identity that we've already established, and to sort of bleed the lines over between verse and chorus even more than they already were. As I mentioned, there's not a lot of differences going on here, and when they don't allow the synth to do this, we get the extra punch from our vocals, but not from the synth. And it's sort of, I asked myself a couple of times, are we actually in the chorus? And I was trying to key into the lyrics and see if we had actually hit the lyrics from the other chorus and see if anything sounded familiar to me. And I wasn't really quite sure, but our bass had shifted to the chorus rhythm, and it was just this really odd moment of not being able to figure out what was going on. That's what I said about the lyrics too, the vocals. Actually, this confusion is a recurring feeling I've had. I couldn't tell if there were two vocalists or one. I couldn't tell if we were in the verse or the chorus, and the end of the song really pulled caught me off guard. That's the word. That's the phrase I want. Because it didn't feel like it was an ending. Like many other times that we bring in new ideas and fade out on them, like it was yesterday's ABBA. Enter a new idea and it's our ending. Um, it really catches me off guard. I was really excited to hear this synth led section. It felt like a really nice break from the repetition we had heard prior to this. It featured a new instrument and lead, which caused it to have a very distinct break from everything else we've heard. And what we get, 8 bars out of it, and then the song just ends. That left me in a state of confusion because I honestly thought there was more music. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in here that are just sonically odd, that are difficult to understand. That's just the lyrics. I know you. Stated twice. There's a flourish to it. It's I know you. Uh, but I'm just gonna read that as I know you. Verse 1, I fall apart. I'm good at picking up the pieces from the bathroom floor and though the tap is broken and I'm miles away, I see a piece of something glittering inside the drain. I feel it rising as the sun beats through the glass. We're driving in the morning down the boulevard and picking all the heartbeats off the floor. I still believe I haven't met the best days of my life. Okay, so we have somebody who's just not doing too great. They feel that they're broken in a lot of ways, that, well, maybe not even that they're broken, but that they feel like they are continuously in a state of being broken. It says, I've gotten good at picking up the pieces. Although, yeah, okay, yeah. I was going to say that implies something other than themselves, but one line prior is, I fall apart. I fall apart, I've gotten good at picking up the pieces. So, yeah. But they have hope here, and they've even mentioned it right here that it says, even though I'm miles away, I still see pieces of something glittering inside the drain. There's a brightness here that they can picture it, it's within view. Then it says, we're driving in the morning down the boulevard, picking all the heartbeats off the floor. And I'm not quite sure what that means, but I also picture a negative aspect to this. Heartbeats are pretty important to life. It's interesting to physically manifest what a heartbeat would be, so much so that you could pick it up. So that's what kind of goes over my head. Like I'm completely missing the metaphor there. Um, but it still sounds negative. You need heartbeats. Uh, Anyways, it says though, I believe I haven't met the best days of my life. So I still think that the great times are ahead of us. These are dark times, but they're not the highlights of my life. There's better times ahead, which is what the glittering inside the drain, I think, is supposed to allude to as well. Our chorus says, are you here or somewhere else? Shooting stars in your direction as I'm losing grip on my reflection, and I call you near from somewhere else. Everything feels so amazing when our bodies float like levitation. Now, this is the second time. I thought I saw something about a reflection earlier, or a mirror. No, I don't know. All right, so this is the first time we've heard the idea of a reflection. Are you here or somewhere else? Shooting stars in your direction as I'm losing grip on my reflection. Everything's amazing when our bodies float like levitation. The only thing I really glean from any of this is that it feels great when possibly the stresses of life don't keep us down and we're no longer rooted and can float, and just the lightness of it. Um, and I'm kind of getting the ideas of stress just from, having to pick up your life every day, pick yourself up every day, and having to track down your heartbeats. But this idea of losing grip on my reflection, like what I see in the mirror is not the truth, but I'm still not sure who this are you here? Shooting stars in your direction. I call you near from somewhere else. Is this a person or is this a side of her? Because we do have the idea of the reflection here. Verse 2. The time is right. I keep on wishing for the moment that I need tonight, and though I've had a catastrophic Saturday, I'm dressing up to look $1,000,000 anyway. So I think the moment that she's wishing for is the switch, right? She sees hope on the future of a brighter future that she can hope for. She hopes that moment of when she flips from this person who falls apart and she has to pick herself up every night to this brighter future happens today. And so she's going to dress the part. It's been a catastrophic Saturday, which I think is a pretty cool phrase. Everybody's working for the weekend, right? So a catastrophic Saturday is a bad day off, right? You're looking forward to this day and it ended up being terrible, which just kind of makes it feel even worse, I think is what we're leaning into there. It says, I'm dressing up to look $1 million anyway. You know, fake it till you make it, maybe. If I want a better future, maybe I just got to start acting like the present's already great. I'm still believing the point is how we try, leaning right into that. You have to look the part to feel the part. I really think that's what they're going for there. I'm watching all the swallows in the summer sky, and even when I can't quite reach the floor, underneath I'm still holding for the best days. Because the sun will come up in pieces. And then we get our chorus repeated 2 more times to our outro. So I think that's what this song is about in general. It's about not having the greatest of days, but putting a smile on and trying your best to work towards that brighter future. In fact, even possibly trying to make today the moment when it becomes a bright future to the bright now, and not letting sorrows or stresses or anything weigh you down and keep you in that not so great present. It's about having hope for the future and working towards it, I think. And maybe that's what the ending is supposed to be about. It takes sort of that dancey, atmospheric, ethereal vibe that we've kind of explored throughout and gives it a strong melodic component in the music. Maybe that's the point that we've reached the brighter future. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on Let's Eat Grandma, the song Levitation. You have thoughts on this? You enjoyed or not? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Put those thoughts in the comments. Above the comment section is a description box. In the description box is a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. Has everything related to the channel. You can find multiple ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord community, a link to the music I've written, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. We have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, make sure you guys drop back by tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, for some more reactions and breakdowns. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.